The term cult member may bring to mind a certain image, that of a mindless robot who adheres to the dictates of an outside authority, one who has uncritical admiration for some unscrupulous sleazebag, one who has dedicated their entire life to a sham, one who goes through life with a blank stare and cannot bring themselves to gain interest in anything other than a group that they belong to. And let's face it, for some people this description is entirely accurate. So let's start by defining what a cult is. On one hand, there are those who have long lists of specific criteria that a cult must adhere to in order to be a cult. Well, if that's the case, then there are no cults. Let's look at the other end of the spectrum. There are people who think that two or more people who agree with each other about anything are a cult. Well, that would make pretty much everybody a cult member, so we're going to try and come up with a happy medium here. I'll discuss some of the things that I agree with when it comes to defining a cult. I'll get this out of the way first. There's a specifically Christian definition of the word cult, and that has to do with adherence to the Bible, belief in the divinity of Jesus, and all that jive. You're likely to come across an analysis that deals with cults using the Christian definition. The definition is worthless, so let's ignore it. Okay, cults do have to have some degree of isolation and an in-group, out-group mentality. They don't all dress in distinctive attire, but yes, they do consider themselves special. They do consider themselves different from the rest of society. Are all cults religious? No. There are therapy cults. Sometimes a work environment can be a cult. There are political groups without a religious aspect that can become cults. Street gangs are very cult-like. There are numerous non-religious examples. What about the public school system or the military? Are they cults? I don't think so. Yeah, there are some school teachers who are very charismatic and have a group of very dedicated students. The military does use mind control methods to indoctrinate its members, but the one thing that makes these groups not cults is permanency. A cult has to have its members be affiliated for the rest of their lives. So the military and schools are expected to be temporary. Technically, though, no, they are not cults. Are all cults bad? I don't think so. Some of them are not so bad. Some cults are not particularly destructive. They're not abusive to their members. Some cults are bad. Some cults are totally fucking evil. Sometimes we find former cult members who abandon the group that they were in, but they do not feel any resentment towards it, nor do they regret being part of it. They no longer believe in the doctrine, but they consider it a learning experience, and in many ways a positive experience. So, on the other end of the spectrum, there are those who hate the former group that they were in. With a passion, they become focused on destroying it. Ex-Scientologists are known for this. Most ex-cult members fall somewhere in between. Can a cult consist of only one person? I don't think so. If there's a person who creates his own religion and follows a series of rituals and beliefs obsessively, I would call that person an eccentric and not a cult of one. There are small cults. Fred Phelps in Westboro Baptist Church has an estimated 60 members, relatively small. So let's look at some of the characteristics that make a cult. I will use an online resource for this. The Rapture Ready forum is where one can view a true cult in action. Rapture Ready is a Christian cult. Of all the thousands of denominations of Christianity and the incredible diversity that one finds between these groups, from the Amish to the South American Catholics, the mainstream Protestants, the snake-handling Pentecostals, the Rapture-Ready folks are the ones who consider themselves the only one true Christians. All these other Christians have it wrong. The Rapture-Ready gang consists of those who believe that at some point, actually any minute now, Jesus will come back to earth from heaven and take all the real Christians up with him. There will be nothing but a pile of empty clothing where they once stood. This is based on a bizarre interpretation of the book of Revelation. It started in the 1830s in the United States. Since then, generation after generation of gullible sheep have lived their lives and died believing, really truly believing, that they will witness the rapture during their lifetimes. It seems like a hard sell, but according to the Gallup poll some years back, it was determined that about 22% of Americans believe this crap, and an additional 22% think it's probably true. Seems to me those numbers are higher than reality. I don't know anybody who actually believes this stuff. So as you can imagine, that line of shit is going to require some serious cult indoctrination and maintenance. The primary leader for the Rapture Readies appears to be a fellow named Todd Strandberg, and if you look at Todd's list of rules for the Rapture Ready Forum, there are 34 of them. Some of them are normal forum rules that one would expect anywhere: respect each other, don't promote violence, solicit or engage in business deals, no sock puppets. Okay, stuff you're going to find anywhere. That accounts for a few of those rules. The rest of the rules make it clear that no one is allowed to express an opinion that might deviate from that of the gurus. He also forbids one from asking why a post was deleted. He has the final say on that, and he does not owe an explanation to anyone. Information control is imperative for this group. These people have to be bombarded constantly with information that is belief-friendly. Of course, a forum is loaded with the typical fundy stuff: anti-choice, anti-gay, anti-science, that crap. They also separate themselves from many of the mainstream fundies. Pat Robertson, Glenn Beck, Billy Graham, and them, they're not the right brand of fundy for the Rapture Ready folks. And it's not just the Rapture, but their specific brand of Rapture. There is also plenty of hostility towards those who choose a different brand of Rapture. Because this scenario is so strange and so narrow, they're not going to get any confirmation for their beliefs outside of the cult. The mainstream world is not going to reinforce this. They refer to the rest of society as the world, and they consider themselves to be separate from it. I suspect that, and this is just speculation, that it would not take long for these people to start having doubts and losing faith after being away from the source of their belief reinforcement. I would guess that maybe a couple of months of being away would cause even the most indoctrinated members to start seriously questioning this belief system. So what does one talk about when they are so limited? The posts on the Rapture Ready forum are often featured on a site called Fundies Say the Darndest Things. I'll share a few of these quotes that may help explain the mindset of these cult members. Okay, here's one. I know that when the rapture happens, there will be a lot more than 4 million people who are gone. Boy, I sure hope our Lord lets us catch a glimpse of what the reaction will be from people like this. They say that millions, maybe billions of people have disappeared. One thing that they have to do is refer to the rapture with absolute certainty. Always. They will never use terms like if, perhaps, maybe, could, etc. Imagining what the reaction of the unsaved will be like after a portion of the Earth's population mysteriously vanishes is a source of great pleasure for these people. This believer is hoping that he gets to see people's reaction after the rapture. Another thing that is prohibited on Rapture Ready Forum is predicting the exact date in which the rapture will happen. This ensures that the concept has no expiration. It can keep going forever. The rapture will always happen soon, always be right around the corner, but nobody knows when it will be for sure. Because they will be taken to heaven soon, these people are not very concerned with environmental responsibility. In fact, they are hostile to the concept. There is a thread in which they were complaining about how horrible the Earth Day is. It's a pagan celebration, they think. Very unchristian. One person dared to go against the grain a little bit and stated that she participated in planting oak trees and enjoyed doing so. The response was, "But does planting trees help bring people to Christ? It's like going to third world countries to feed the hungry. It doesn't do a starving man any good to keep him alive for another day if he is doomed to hell anyway. It doesn't do anyone any good to plant trees for people if they haven't heard about Jesus. The future of this earth is destruction. You don't bring people to Christ with inanimate objects. He is knowable, but unless that tree becomes paper and eventually a Bible, it will have no value in expressing how to know the Creator who made the tree." Well, we can see that this response serves a couple of purposes. On the surface, it's a reminder that everything the cult members do must reinforce the belief system. And it makes that tree planter feel bad about what she said. She needs a kind of punishment for saying something that does not properly represent the cult's beliefs. This is a kind of shunning that's going on here. Shunning and punishment are on this forum constantly. One can get banned for very minor infractions. They tend to be very childish, probably a result of the fairy tale dualist worldview that they must so narrowly cling to. There are those who were admonished for believing in old earth creationism. I'm not talking about science here. I'm talking about creationism, in which the six-day biblical creation is considered to be metaphorical rather than literal 24-hour days. That's not good enough for the rapture ready, folks. God is not a liar. His word states that the universe was created in 6 days, so it was. Popular culture has adopted some of this cult's dogma to an extent. The Left Behind series by Tim LaHaye and them was a very big seller. These books describe the scenario that these folks think is going to occur. Before Left Behind, there was a movie called Thief in the Night from 1972. I've read some of the reviews of this movie on Amazon. There are folks around my age who were shown this movie in church settings when they were children. What they describe is nothing short of a traumatizing effect. These people literally lived in terror of the thought of being left to suffer the tribulation after their parents were taken up by Jesus. There's some very powerful brainwashing going on here. One of the threads on Rapture Ready site was started by a person who was asking her fellow cult members if it was okay to read Harry Potter and Twilight for research purposes in order to write about these things. The responses were across the board, but the point is that this person is so indoctrinated that she feels compelled to ask permission to read certain books, something that is unimaginable to me. This also demonstrates the fear of being contaminated by the ideas that come from what they refer to as the world. If they aren't Jesused out enough, then the grand cosmic goo-goo fuck is going to leave them behind with the Antichrist and the tribulation and all that jive. They are somewhat aware of the fact that their cult is sometimes an object of ridicule, an example of looniness. Yes, and Jesus was ridiculed too, and you just watch. You won't be laughing after the rapture happens and we're out of here. We will have the last laugh, and you just watch. The rapture is going to happen any minute now. Any minute now. Any minute now. Any minute now.